Hi everybody, Aaron back with you, and I hope you're having a fantastic week. We are getting closer to the weekend, and even if you're not off the weekend, hopefully we're getting close to a day off for you and all that hard work that you put in. Now, if you've been watching my channel lately, well, number one, thank you. But number two, you've probably seen that it's been more of a historical bent to a lot of my videos. Now, I'm not going to say that that's going to be the way it's always going to be, but history is something that means a lot to me. I love getting out and interacting with it, and looking back on the history of this country and on the history of the world. And I'm working on a pretty big project right now on the life and times of boy hero of the Confederacy, Sam Davis. So if that's something that interests you, look for that. But within that, visiting cemeteries, researching things that are going on across the country, I've seen a disturbing trend on desecration going on in cemeteries.
New at 11 tonight, it troubled police but disturbed neighbors even more. Imagine passing the cemetery and seeing an open grave. ABC 6 reporter Robert Goulston live in Charlestown with a story you'll see only on ABC 6.
Alice, in Charlestown, like any town, very proud of its history. The police department tonight, though, trying to figure out who tried to dig up some of theirs.
Well, it is pretty remote.
It happened in the dark of night.
I'm kind of dumbfounded.
The victim?
I think it's a couple hundred years old.
Isn't with us anymore. Actually, he hasn't been since the 1800s.
It's really creepy, and the hole is deeper than I expected. When you said 6 feet, I thought maybe you were exaggerating a little, but it's 6 feet.
I would assume it's just a regular shovel.
Two people driving by found the open grave and reported it to police. The headstone belongs to Tobias Saunders, who died May 31st, 1809.
From some of the footprints in the dirt, it looked like it was younger people that did it.
The historical cemetery is just off a rural road, not much of an attraction until now.
Law enforcement in Bushnell say something happened this weekend at the Florida National Cemetery they have not seen in 25 years. All new at 5:30. Jeff Butera shows you why they're now investigating it as a hate crime.
We do treat this as hallowed ground. This is considered to be a national shrine, as are all national cemeteries.
Because here, some of our nation's soldiers are buried. Men like Ronald Rothman, who served in the Army, fought in Vietnam. Yet this weekend, someone pushed his gravestone over like a domino.
It boggles my mind. I don't understand how anybody could get pleasure out of doing something like that.
5:30, a Pasco County cemetery vandalized. Good evening, I'm Wendy Ryan in for Laura.
And I'm Jamison Euler in for Paul this half hour. One gravesite dug up, another damaged. Tonight the search is on for whoever did it. Our Eric Waxler is in Crystal Springs with the clues left behind. Eric?
The markers have deteriorated through time.
Vietnam veteran Chuck Flanagan comes here to Crystal Springs Cemetery every couple of weeks to mow the grass and pull weeds.
Usually I walk around, see if there's any branches to pick up.
But on a recent visit, he found something he couldn't believe. One gravesite dug up, the hole about 5 feet deep.
And they were pretty determined because they had to dig through a few feet of clay.
And another gravesite with a stone vault cover moved. The site is where Elise Brophy is buried. She died in 1930. Her husband, the town's first postmaster.
It's quite a grave.
Post Commander Leroy Bell oversees the Old Church Cemetery, a secluded location where people from every century are buried dating back to the 1700s.
Think of anything like this happening. We've never had it happen before as long as this cemetery's been here.
Commander Bell says these gates remain locked all the time, and it wasn't until he came out here to cut the grass that he realized that 5 of the graves were disturbed.
It would have to be that they're thinking that they can get some type of relics.
The grave robbers knocked over headstones and dug up graves of Revolutionary, Confederate, and World War I soldiers, and also some children, taking whatever was in those graves and leaving the bones behind.
Some of the trinkets, the buttons on the coats, any of the artifacts that would have been buried with some of these soldiers. So these grave robbers, is what I call them, are most likely hunting for those things, whether to keep them for themselves or to sell, because they do bring a lot of money.
And cases of this have been going on around the country. Example after example after example. And statistically speaking, we've seen a ramp up of these types of crimes from 2008 into the current day. They tend to hit rural cemeteries because easier to get to without watchful eyes that you see in your better kept city cemeteries. We think of grave robbing in the past, you get this image of this Victorian ne'er-do-well with lantern in one hand and a shovel in the other, faceless, nameless. But then when we actually look at some of the arrests that have been made in these types of crimes, we tend to see people that could be on substance abuse, and they see this as kind of a victimless crime. And it's not. Our loved ones, people who have passed on, who no longer have any ties to them, no friends or family to take care of their gravesite, they deserve respect. They lived their life, they gave back, many times they served, and the least we can do is honor them in trying to keep up these cemeteries. And even if you live in a small town, doesn't have, for instance, a regular person that comes by and mows and picks up limbs or any small things, that's something that you yourself can get out and do. And I've endeavored to do that myself, to find a local cemetery that I can volunteer at. And there are many ways to do that, and those are some of the things that I want to cover now. Is just a way that you yourself can give back and can help beautify some of these places that are falling into disrepair. So the first thing I want to talk about and how you can give back to some of your local cemeteries is, of course, picking up stones that have toppled over, resetting those stones, looking into the cleaning aspect of headstones. Typically use a mixture of water and soap is really the best one. Never use bleach when you are working on headstones. Pressure washers are a good fit. There are some different solutions that you can look up on the internet that are used by professionals, especially if you have situations of graffiti and things like that you're trying to take off. There are ways to do that. Make an event of your cemetery. Look up some of the famous people that are there, the history of your town. Showcase that to some younger generations. You can also volunteer by going and just mowing the yard, cutting back some of the shrubbery that's encroaching upon the cemetery, picking up branches. Everybody's got access to some type of tools to go out and do some yard work, and you can certainly do that in your local cemetery. Another way is to go to volunteerism at veterans.gov, and you can volunteer in a national cemetery in your area. There are so many ways, just to whatever access you have to, whatever time you have to, you can always give back to restoring some of the dignity of our loved ones in these places. I want to leave you with this cool story about how a company is giving back and getting some graves ready for viewing on Easter Sunday that were vandalized. Some 40 graves in all. This is just a touching story.
We got to witness some of the sights and sounds, as well as the ups and downs the cleanup crew is going through.
What I'm doing now is I'm putting on a graffiti remover that's made for brick and masonry, and then we're going to let that set for a couple of minutes, and we're going to scrub it with this brush, and then Antonio's going to come in with the pressure washer. It hurts to be in a place like this where somebody would come do something like this, but it also feels good. You know, we're coming out and we're doing a good thing. We're helping people. That one's ready, Antonio. No, I don't think it is anymore. It was. No, I don't think it is, Antonio. On some of the stones, the paint won't come off as easily. So what we're doing is that runs water and baking soda at high pressure through, and it acts like a sandblaster to try and get it off. So Antonio's working on it. So we've got a little ways to go, but we'll get there.
Protech Inc.'s president says the goal is to have everything cleaned up by tonight, tomorrow at the latest. They're moving fast so the cemetery will be presentable on Easter Sunday. In Studio 15, Kaitra Pasola, News Channel 15.